All right, today we're jumping into the world of Yanomami Infancy, and it's a world that's, well, it's a place of incredible love, but also some really tough choices about survival. So that brings us to the big question, right? The one that's probably on your mind. How can a culture practice something like infanticide and, at the same time, show such intense, incredible love for its children? It's a paradox that really pushes us to look beyond our own ideas of how things should be.
We're headed deep into the Amazon to look at a specific group of Yanomami people known as the Shiliksana. And what's so fascinating about them is this huge contrast you see. On one hand, this amazing affection for children, and on the other, these very pragmatic and, to us, very difficult practices for survival.
You know, if you were just an outsider looking in, you might see some of their customs and think, wow, they have a low regard for life. But that's really just scratching the surface. The real story is so much more complicated than that.
Okay, so to really get this, we have to start with the toughest part to talk about, the cultural practice of infanticide. You see, for the Yanomami, their whole approach to a new baby is shaped by the incredibly harsh world they live in. It's all about a kind of brutal logic. And when you look at the reasons, they're all about survival, plain and simple. We're talking about things like, is the baby the weaker of a set of twins? Does it have any physical issues that might make survival tough? And in a place where getting enough food, especially meat, is a constant struggle, is the baby a girl, which, in their view, adds to that burden? And this quote from our sources just nails it. In a society where might is right, survival dictates the choice. So you see, these aren't decisions made out of cruelty or something. They're often made by the head of the family, the father, based on a really stark calculation of what the family can actually handle to survive. And you have to realize, these customs are deeply rooted. It's not like they're just fading away. The sources point out that even when missionaries came in and tried to change things, these practices stuck around because they're so woven into the very fabric of their society and how they live. But all of that harsh, survival-based thinking, that's only one side of the story. And honestly, it's a world away from how the Yanomami treat the children they do raise. So let's flip the coin. Let's look at that other side now. A world that is just filled with affection and tenderness. Because for the kids who are kept, their childhood is, well, it's one of almost constant love and care. And when I say constant, I mean constant. For the first 6 months, a mother and her baby are basically one unit. She carries the infant everywhere, either just on her hip or in a simple sling. We're talking a really powerful, unbroken physical bond.
And it's not just the moms either. The fathers are described as being super affectionate too. You'll often see them at dusk, just cuddling and playing with their little kids. It paints this picture of a really gentle, loving family.
So, if you piece it all together, what's it like to grow up as a Yanomami child? Well, first, there's that constant physical touch we talked about. But also, the whole village looks out for the kids. And get this, it's super permissive. Kids are rarely punished. And it really tells you something that when a child does pass away, the grief isn't just felt by the parents. The entire community mourns deeply. That shows you just how strong those bonds really are. Okay, so how on earth do these two things exist in the same culture? The pragmatic, sometimes brutal decisions, and this incredible affection. Well, the key, it seems to come down to how they define what it means to be a person. And this is maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. For the Yanomami, a baby isn't considered a full-on social person right from birth. That idea of personhood comes later, around age 2. And it's a huge deal, marked by giving the child their name. It's this way of thinking that allows those two very different realities to coexist. And once a child is part of the community, they start learning their roles right away. And the roles are very different for boys and girls. Boys are actually encouraged to be aggressive, even to hit their own fathers, to build that fierceness they'll need as warriors. Girls, on the other hand, are guided toward helping their mothers, learning about childcare and how to prepare food from a really young age. All right, so let's pull all of this together. We've seen this tough survivalist side, and we've seen this incredibly loving, affectionate side. How do you make sense of it all as one complete picture? So, what this really boils down to, according to the sources, isn't a lack of love. It's not that life isn't valued. It's a really complex cultural system that's built to balance that deep, personal love for a child with the absolutely brutal realities of just trying to survive in their environment. And that leaves us with a really tough question, doesn't it? Because trying to understand why a culture does something is one thing, but that's not the same as agreeing with it. And it really makes you think, where do you, personally,
Draw the line between respecting a different culture's practices and standing by what you believe is a universal morality.